podcast. And then bada bing, bada boom.
Bada boom, bada bing. Michael Scott Sebring. We're
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the LIC podcast. I'm one of your many hosts, Matt Metro, and with me, as always, Jose Amaya
Hello, everyone.
and Hannah Metro.
Hello.
And today on the podcast, we watched Kevin Smith's Tusk. I am so sorry. as we continue on our lifelong journey to truly understand the poetry of the flesh, Jose.
Yes, this
think,
movie was nothing but a haiku of the flesh.
Yeah. So I want to get to your first impressions right away, as we usually do, but I think the question that is really burning in everybody's mind, the question that we all need answered: would you ever go full walrus?
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
Okay. That's all I needed to know.
No, if the answer is yes, then we need an explanation.
Well, I guess if we're going to go deep into the meat of the matter, I would most certainly go full walrus. I understood why he wasn't able to do so right away because he was chained, but that's all I was thinking about the entire time was the fact that my life is over if I look this way. But I want to make sure to get the guy who did this to me.
For sure.
So at what point in the story would your focus shift strictly to getting him?
When?
Yeah.
Oh, that moment when they were like sitting next to each other and he was like laying on him. I was confused initially during that scene because I didn't realize just then that he's still chained up in that way. In my mind, I would have tried to grab that guy and like sink with him at the same time into that pool.
Oh,
Taking
yeah.
you out with
Yeah,
me.
exactly. That was my most visceral reaction in terms of that section of it.
So you went into this movie like as blind as possible, right?
Oh, 100% blind. Yeah.
At what point did you realize that it was mostly a comedy? Or do you feel that way at all?
I mean, the whole movie was a comedy. I don't think that the movie itself ever gave up the air of levity that a comedy has. Even when things became gruesome, there is a particular thematic feeling I feel that like particular movies want you to be able to have depending on their genre, right? Like a horror movie usually retains its air of normalcy up until the moment where the pitch change happens, essentially, right? In this one, I don't believe that it ever got away from the joviality of each individual character, if that makes any sense. Like the guy, Howard Howe, we'll just call him that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Howard Howe. I mean, like he never like the comedy transferred from one character to the other. I feel right because once Wallace began to have the tragedy of losing his limbs, the comedy went over to Howard and his reactions to the way that he was reacting about the whole situation, like just trying to like stifle his laughter and like trying to like just trying to make excuses and everything like that. So like again, the movie never gave itself any form of misdirection in relation to like the seriousness or non-seriousness of what the thematic through line I would say was.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean I never really thought that it was a horror movie or like anything or even a thriller really. Like it was really just a comedy the entire time. Yeah.
It's super refreshing to hear you say that because it took until the second time that I was watching it that I realized that it was just a comedy.
Me too.
That like, because the movie's pretty disgusting. Like,
Yeah, it is.
If you're to transplant it into like real life, everything that happens is gruesome as shit, like you said, and very disturbing and kind of hard to watch sometimes.
I actually felt ill the first time I watched this movie,
I don't blame you.
which is crazy looking back on it because I think it's hysterical now.
I found it really hard to laugh out loud at a lot of things. That just hoping that maybe it hadn't sunk in all the way for you yet.
No, I mean the casting already kind of gave itself away.
Hmm.
You know, I don't exactly know the real name of the protagonist.
Justin Long.
Justin Long. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, but I've seen him in pretty much everything that he's been in, you know, and I don't think I've ever seen him in a serious movie in my life,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that's true.
So just from there, I couldn't exactly say that I was being misdirected in any sort of way. Like the beginning of the movie also with the setup of who he is and like where he's coming from already lets you know that even if this were to become a scary movie, I think that it would never be able to actually move its finger from the button of comedy far away enough. Like for example, if we're gonna keep it to the film, you know, the filmography of Kevin Smith, like Red State, right? Like that movie, although it tries to create a particular type of genre subversion, let's say by beginning with the whole them, you know, being out in the trailer just trying to find some sex online, and then eventually leading to the the crazy evangelist kind of situation. Like that went just from thriller to horror essentially, you know,
Yeah.
like the avenues of difference, you know what I mean? Like they're next door neighbors essentially. Like it really doesn't take too much to go from one to the other, which I personally feel is why that movie was so great. You know, like he played well within that neighborhood. He knew he knew the neighbors. He knew exactly what door to knock at what point, and it worked perfectly because it went from thriller to horror to action essentially, and then to ironic comeuppance, which was beautiful, you know, in my personal opinions. Like that was a great song, essentially, like a great cinematic song to hear. You know, like it all went in the way that it went is supposed to. This one, I feel that I didn't like it as much just because of the fact that it was nothing but comedy for the most part. Even though the body horror was there and he did push the lines in terms of like the aesthetic viscerality of it, like the thematic aspect of it never really went to the other side where like now I'm scared alongside like freaked out, you know, I mean like not alongside like the funny aspect of it, you know. There was and maybe it wasn't his intention. Like it's really really difficult to tell with this one. It really is difficult to tell exactly what he wanted to convey in relation to the, I guess, like out the door feeling of it, you know, which I mean in and of itself is refreshing. I mean, a lot of the times I feel like I have my thoughts already pretty well categorized in relation to a movie, and this one really did throw me for a loop in that kind of way. You
That's a
know,
goal.
yeah, and I don't know if I like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm usually a kind of person who their thoughts align very very fast. You know, like I see information and then like even if it's wrong, like at least my brain tries to categorize it in a way that like makes sense to me personally. But this one really didn't just because of the fact that, I mean, he makes the antagonist sympathetic in relation to what would cause him to become so maniacal, right?
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I will say that during the scene where he went full on exposition dump on us, I thought that that was a bit lacking. Considering the fact that he had already set up the quasi promise that whenever we're talking about the past, we're going to get those funny, like black and white film vignettes kind of situation. I was expecting him to eventually flip over to that kind of situation and then kind of give us a bit of like a melodramatic horror comedy ish, like skit essentially of what this poor child went through when he was talking about it. I thought that it was very poor the fact that the whole time it was just Howard Howe explaining it as opposed to actually showing it. You know, that was a very very big moment. I feel it was a missed opportunity, you know, to show more than to tell more than show. Or I don't know, wait, show more than tell.
Other
Sorry.
way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's break it out. What do you like about this movie?
I like the antagonist. I really do. Um, this movie, another thing that I really like about the movie is the fact that it is very thematically resonant with The Fly in relation to the fact that this protagonist also sucks.
He does.
He's a piece
know?
of shit. Yeah.
Arguably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
for
they
sure
reveal
he
it to you
sucks.
slowly, which is nice.
I-
Like you get the impression he's kind of a jerk off at the beginning.
Yeah,
a clear impression.
I did not like the piecemealing aspect of showcasing his background in the way that they did. Just
We're
because.
talking about what you do like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
If
my
we
bad.
can stay there for just
Okay,
a
okay,
moment.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's totally fair if there's not like I am of the opinion that this is one of those movies that's really really bad, but it's because it's so absurd. I like reveled in it. Like I revel in that absurdity.
I get ya. I get
Matt
that.
loves absurdity.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of scenes in the movie that I really liked. I liked their initial introduction with each other when they were just talking and having tea with each other. I thought that was a very good back and forth between them. If the like that scene I feel is the pivot scene in relation to where the movie can go, right? Like you can't like what half the fun of our situation is trying to figure out which other movies can be made with the movie that's already at hand, essentially. And in my personal opinion, that scene is the pivot scene that causes, that makes it go, what I mean, in the route that it does. Because in my personal opinion, I thought that we were slowly going to figure out that maybe this guy is a liar, like maybe it was going to be a situation where he keeps spinning yarns and like keeps holding the guy back essentially in relation to staying with him so he can listen to him and continue telling these like outlandish stories potentially.
Yeah, there is like a question in your brain during all of that dialogue because his stories are so outlandish and he seems like kind of a crazy older guy that even having watched this movie before, I still get hit with that feeling of like, is this guy full of shit?
And it's really hard to tell, especially with that scene that we get with Guy Lapointe, where he finds him in the cabin, right? Because you imagine this guy, now he lives in this mansion somewhere else in Canada, but as far as we know, he could just be making all of this shit up. The walrus penis, the bottle on the wall, like these could all just be stories that he spun. Because where did he get all this shit? He used to live in a cabin a few years ago where Guy Lapointe found him.
Yeah, but
If that is
supposedly
where
that
he
was
lives.
after he came back from his maritime adventures, and you're right in the sense that this guy is a very unreliable antagonist, let's say, and
Who speaks beautifully.
oh yeah, for sure.
Like he speaks like
I
a
would
crazy
imagine
person.
that everything he told about his childhood to be true, right? And I would imagine that his maritime adventures would also be true, just because of the fact that the breaking point for him was the whole having to kill his walrus savior, which then essentially caused him to have that mental break, which makes sense, right? Because I mean, like it looks like he was about like maybe 25 when that situation happened, right? And then he goes back to reality, right? And then let's say within 5 years he has the full mental breakdown where he kills his first victim. And if he really has killed 24 people, I would imagine
23.
Well, 23,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
If he really has mutilated 24 people, I would say that the amount of time clicks, right? Because I would imagine that he probably takes breaks in between every single one of those, every single creation.
Iteration.
Iteration, creation,
Yeah.
especially because I'm sure that he probably took him a long time to perfect it to the degree that the victim wouldn't die right away, right? I mean, like...
He had to learn, how to amputate somebody's leg and while they were knocked out and sew it up properly. And
yeah, and I'm wondering if he created the game of like them waking up with an amputated limb after the fact. You know what I mean? Like as he grew to perfect his craft in relation to what he did, if he learned how to be able to essentially entertain himself in that way,
He did seem to be having fun.
yeah, it's weird because he. It's weird. Can you read that on the?
Huh?
I know it's kind of small on the.
Oh.
TV. Yeah, it's interesting because you don't I don't know. I wasn't thinking it maybe till up until this time we watched it, but as Justin Long is waking up the first time, you see him what looks like polishing a tusk, but he's actually sanding down Justin Long's tibia
Yep.
Yeah,
to
I
put
saw
in his
that.
mouth later.
Mhm.
So maybe you can't take more than one leg at a time, and like, or like you got to space them out a little. So
Oh,
Well, you
there's
gotta
I'm
proper
manage
sure.
the
recovery.
bleeding.
Yeah, I was thinking the entire time when he was screaming after he became the walrus, like, can you induce yourself to a heart attack? You know? Because honestly, I cannot believe that they didn't kill him. You know what I mean? Like, holy fucking shit. Like, it's unfortunate that they're in such a wishy-washy country like Canada, where they would allow an abomination like a walrus man to then be put in a sanctuary
Yeah,
as
okay,
opposed to
so-
out of their misery.
To be viewed by children? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a zoo and
okay,
the
that's
tiniest
like
pen I've ever seen.
the ultimate like cherry on the top of the cake for me, because you don't put something like that in a zoo. Nobody would. Like, where's the ACLU? Where's like
Steven, I don't think he was sanding down a bone. I think he was sanding down a tusk itself.
No,
right?
that was for sure one of the bones.
One
out
of his
his
bones?
legs.
Yeah, 'cause he
Oh,
said that
right.
it's the
one of the
tibia.
femur bone. It's one of his leg bones
Yeah, the
that he then uses in order to be able to.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to go to.
Right.
I'm gonna have to go with Claire. I think it's very careful.
Yeah.
he was very, very methodical about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is his 24th. This is his 24th structure. I
He was
mean,
reveling in it. Really.
if anybody's ever played any sort of, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was for sure his leg. Yeah, but well, it was like his. Wait, but how could it be his leg if one of his legs was in the on ice?
No, that was the second leg.
Yep.
The
We
leg
don't
we
see
see
that
on
until
ice
after.
is the second leg,
Okay, so
and that's while he's sewing.
Wait.
the
Jose
arms.
does have a good point though,
I'm
because
really
he's
confused.
downstairs as a walrus with 2 tusks when we see that leg on ice.
Right, we don't have any, but we don't know how much time has elapsed between the scene where we
Where'd
see
the
Justin
second
on the
tusk come
table.
from?
Yeah,
we see
is
Justin Long on the table.
is he using his shin legs as the?
It's
as
the tibia
tusk?
bone.
Maybe it's the
tibia
femur.
bone. No, he says it's the tibia bone that they found in
Okay, if it's
Gumtree's gum.
Claire, he
Okay,
has
thank you.
0 legs
Yeah.
now.
Okay, so if it's the tibia bone, how is it that then he can have one extra leg on ice upstairs when
Because
they're?
he just chopped that off before he started sewing the arms. That was his second leg. So he hasn't yet got to making the second tusk. That comes later.
That doesn't make any sense. During the movie, he had 2 tusks. He was a full walrus.
That was after.
No.
when
okay, think about-
Haley Joel Osment
when
and
they
the
came in,
girlfriend
yeah.
ran in. All
Mhm.
right, she said, "Oh my god!" When she saw,
it.
his leg on ice, and
'Cause
that's
that's
when
when
Hannah said, "I would for
Oh.
sure
Yeah.
recognize your leg as well."
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
So aha, gotcha, Kevin Smith.
Wait.
You fucked up, buddy.
He's made many human walruses. We have no reason to assume he doesn't have a leftover tusk
Yeah, he
lying
probably
You
around.
doesn't.
think an artiste like this man would use spare bone from a
Spare-
The
different?
whole walrus suit is spare people. There's faces and ears
yeah,
on
did
his
you see
back.
the faces?
I
and
thought
the
that was
skin?
all him. I honestly thought. I mean, like, listen, the human skin is the largest organ that we have, and you can stretch that out quite a lot.
Oh yeah.
I personally
There's
thought
extra
that.
faces.
I
though.
personally thought that was all him.
Oh okay.
Especially because of the fact that you then see another walrus underwater, right, fully made, also when essentially with the exact same stitchings and everything. Like, this man knows exactly how to be able to stretch out one man's human skin to be able to then make one human walrus suit. Because how exactly would he then go about making the first walrus suit? You know, I have to wonder, right? I mean, like, I don't think he killed somebody, then used that body as the spare amounts for the second guy to then make them a walrus. I am genuinely of the belief that of the schematics that he had on his wall, that it was all one man makes one walrus kind of situation.
That's actually a really good question because, I mean, I assumed it was different people, both because of like the faces and different ears on the body, but also because of the varying degree of like decomposition of the skin that was patched together for the walrus suit.
That
But
is
that
fair.
does pose a very good question: is where did all the skin come from for the first walrus
Well,
suit?
23. Yeah.
That is
okay.
fair.
I think your inkling is onto something, though. I think the first person, maybe he did try to take the first person and take all the skin off and then try that. But it seems like the size of the body that Justin Long's walrus body would have to be more than one person's skin, especially because it was so piecemeal
Actually,
and there was a face on the back.
let me shoot myself in the foot and say the fact that I do believe that he probably did use multiple people because he created a walrus suit for himself, right?
That's
and
true.
that
That's
walrus
true.
suit is essentially made of the exact same type of material that the other suit is made out of. So
Which is skin.
I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine that he probably does just have spare extra skin that he just has lying around for the
But-
next guy or whatever.
I
That
mean,
plus, we
it's
don't know how fat
never-
his victims have been. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So I have two questions about that. First of all, what is filling all the extra walrus space in the walrus suit? Because it's like the skin layer, and then Justin Long's body is very small.
Yeah.
So what's taking up the rest of that mass that's keeping the shape going on there?
I think it might just be like the paper mache-ish aspect of skin. You know what I mean? Where like once it hardens,
Tell us more.
yeah,
about
like
that.
once it hardens, you know, it
No.
just takes a particular shape.
Like
Like it
they-
might be the fact that he might be hollow. You know, like.
That's why he floated at first, maybe. He
It's
was filling
possible,
with
yeah. It
water.
might very well be that he's either hollow or he could be filled in with fat after the fact. You know, like. So take your pick.
I
So
don't
Steve-
wanna.
So Steve Jewell has a really good question here, that I think really drives that.
Uh-huh.
Like the
Is man a walrus at heart? I mean, I guess. I mean,
What do you mean you guess?
listen, I was really confused at how Howard Howe was able to kill Mr. Tusk, the OG Mr. Tusk.
yeah, the first one.
Okay,
I was
I have
confused, too.
absolutely no idea how a man who has been emaciated and left on upon a rock, and that I can believe that a walrus will save a man. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
mammals imprint upon each other all the time. You know. What I can't believe is the fact that without any form of tool or anything, that guy would have been able to actually kill that walrus.
He probably took him while he was sleeping. The big sharp rock or something.
Oh, damn.
I
Do you
could
think
not
that's actually,
imagine.
Do you think that's
no.
actually a parallel to how he takes down his victims in
How do
relation
you-
to the fact that he puts them to sleep before he Mr. Tusks them?
But he had nothing with him, and I find it highly unlikely that a person can kill a walrus with a big sharp.
I
rock
honestly do
suddenly.
not, but don't believe that whole section of the story whatsoever. Because when we
You found part of this
saw that
movie
section of the story,
unbelievable?
he ripped off a chunk of the walrus's skin, but it was at the bottom section of it. That
Yeah.
all that would have done is piss that walrus off
You would think so.
to the degree that he would have been like tusked in the same way that he was as an old man, essentially.
Well,
you
and
know?
he said in the dialogue when they were having that like man walrus fight, I guess, he said this is like your chance because you never had a chance. So that makes me think he did something
Oh.
sneaky, but I don't know what that could
That
have
is a
possibly
good
been.
point. That's true. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, he did say that there was no fight the first time around. He just ate them.
He wanted penance in a weird way, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, he wanted judgment to a particular
Yeah.
degree because if it was penance, I feel like after like say the first successful walrus suit wherein they can have their genuine wrestling match with each other. You know what I mean? Like because I
That
can't imagine
probably happened once.
I can't imagine that out of 24 walruses, this is the first one who's actually put up a fight. You know,
Yeah.
I cannot believe that. So I can only imagine that it isn't so. Yeah, it's a fact that he wants to be, you know, like essentially executed by the walrus in that way because there is no penance for what he did because the walrus is an innocent creature. So no, Steve, man is not like a walrus because walrus are beautiful, innocent creatures.
Right? And man is the true savages. Okay, it might be
Yeah.
pretty difficult, right, to kill a walrus, even if it's sleeping.
They're so massive and so strong.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, Steven makes a pretty good point. It's like, okay, like, yeah, it would be like him standing there and then like a cat taking him out by the Achilles heel, and then all of a sudden, just, ah!
I mean, is a walrus's heart in its ass somewhere? Like,
No,
by
I mean,
that I don't know anything about walrus.
it's a mammal. Like, it's essentially you, but with like deformed legs, essentially.
I think this movie explained that pretty well.
You did?
That a walrus is essentially you missing some limbs.
Yeah. But going back to the protagonist, I mean, yeah, like this movie has quite the parallels with The Fly, because I hated the protagonist. And I hated him even prior to getting all of that extra background information in relation to him being a cheater or
Oh, yeah.
whatever. You know, if anything, I think that characterization for him diluted the movie for me, because being a cheater to me personally feels like something that when it comes to in a story, that should be like the dramatic irony that takes you down, right? So if him being a cheater was supposed to be a really big resonant aspect of his character, I feel that there should have been some sort of situation, Red State-ish, where he would have been essentially like catfished into the situation in that particular way. Like his lust would have been the thing that brought him down in that particular way. In this kind of way, it just seems like a vestigial negative characterization that they just sprinkled on in order to be able to be like, oh, don't cheer for him or don't feel too sympathetic for him because he's a piece of shit. You know?
I mean, I do think they do kind of both a little bit, because they characterize him generally as an asshole, and that's why he went to Canada in the first place. So there is a little bit of that trigger on his character. And in the cheating, one could argue that this probably wouldn't have happened if he would have been willing to bring his girlfriend with him, like she begged him to, so that he could sleep with other people while he was there.
Well, yeah, he says himself, though, to his best friend, right? And maybe that's the most honest that he's being, that he's doing it so he can be the most honest podcaster at heart. You know, he's got to
so
be
he can get roadhead.
Yeah, and so he can get roadhead. But that was side B. But so he says,
see, and maybe that's the thing that I don't like about it, is maybe like the way that they went about providing the information. You know, like if they would have actually sprinkled like a real-time example of him being a piece of shit, like they were at that bar, right, that bar with the big H on the top of it, like if he would have hit on some girls, if he would have done any sort of like in the present move to be able to then allow me to see the cheating aspect coming, you know what I mean? Like I think it would have actually cemented it a little better, because honestly, I did not peg him as a cheater whatsoever until the fucking story told me that he was a cheater, you know? And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, so you're just like inserting that information into me, like at this moment, you know what I mean? Because of the fact that now he's going through a harrowing situation and you don't want me to feel too sympathetic for the protagonist. Like, I see you, Kevin Smith. I see what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Like, I feel like all of the points could still work the exact same way, but I think that they should have used more there should have been more catalysts to showcasing that. And also, again, if they were going to use his cheating as like, you know, as a driving force to perhaps explain his characterizational like downfall, I wish that they would have married those two together in some sort of way. You know, like if Howard Howe had like I know this sounds silly, but it's like even like in like Saw, you know, like how Jigsaw has an apprentice kind of situation. Like if there would have been like some means of having like some girl who is also traumatized, or some woman who is also traumatized from like the orphanage situation, like they partner up in that way, and that's how they capture him in that kind of way. I feel that would have worked out a lot better. In this kind of way, I just feel like they're just trying to make me dislike the antagonist so that way they can muscle in the fact that all of these bad things are happening to him without without losing the comedy. I feel, like I feel like the reason why he did that is because he wants to maintain the levity. Like, oh, don't feel too bad for this guy. He's an asshole. Like, all of these things that are happening to him still can be funny because this isn't an innocent person.
That's a good point.
I feel like aside from okay, so yeah, I'm of two minds here too. I feel like
We'll
the
get there,
dude,
Steve. Don't worry.
yeah, I feel like the dude's character is shitty enough that the viewer might feel justified in watching some shitty stuff happen to him. But I feel like getting turned into a human walrus is probably like too high. Like, it's like too much punishment for being a cheater. I don't know. But then at the same time, oh shit, how else was I thinking about this? Well, I mean, granted,
I guess he's of one mind. About
I was of two minds, and then I don't know, something changed.
I do think I want to get to Steve Jewell's question as well, but I do think again we've gotten very, very far from what Jose does like about this movie. I've heard that some of the dialogue was okay.
I kind of knew going into the. Yeah, honestly, I just wanted to gross you out for the most part, and then have you figure out that that you can laugh as much as you want, even during the weird parts.
Yeah, see, I wasn't grossed out at all during the movie.
Not at all.
No, not whatsoever. Like, nothing about anything about it grossed me out. Like, I think the guy, as macabre as it is, he did a good job making a walrus man. I mean, like, I've seen many walrus documentaries in my life, and
you've seen many?
Yeah, plenty. I mean,
what's
like
many?
Like at least 3.
Oh wow.
Yeah, at least 3.
I
know a good bit about walruses, and at heart, man and walrus isn't too different. If anything, a walrus is a little worse because they maintain a very, very thick harem of female walruses, and they will kill any male bull who tries to get in the way of that. They're not exactly they're not exactly very reciprocal when it comes to diversifying like the genetic pool there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's more things that I liked about the movie. God, that's the thing. I can't really find too many things that I like just because of the fact that.
What about Johnny Depp?
Yeah, he was badass.
Okay.
We all like Johnny Depp in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was very abrupt but very welcome in the movie because the movie was becoming a bit I don't even want to say saccharine, but it kind of was getting a little bit too wishy-washy in relation to the fact that, okay, yeah, he's a walrus at this point, and it's like what can you do
How
about
is
it? You know what I mean? Like, there's
wishy-washy?
no like reversibility to it. Like, okay, like in The Fly, right? Like, even if you've never seen that movie, okay, you can maybe assume that perhaps you could get reversed in some way, right? Like, if you don't know anything about the movie, the science can still potentially be there to save the guy, right? With this one, there is no going back. Like, it's essentially like a fate worse than death to a particular degree.
Yeah, once it gets far enough, for sure. But on the other hand, it is like a suit. At the end of the day, he's an amputee missing a tongue.
In a skin suit.
Yeah, but you can take him out of the skin suit.
But that's the thing, though. Do we know that how much of that suit is made out of his own skin?
Right, and how much it's intertwined, because his face looks like it's his face.
That's a
yeah,
good point.
exactly.
Sewed
And that
into-
section is stretched and then
Yeah.
stapled sewed, like heavy sewed on each piece, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that like there's like a human body in there and then like like the blubber and then skin around it, like I mean, I would have to believe the what's it called, the schematics and sketches that the guy has on his board, like
Mm-hmm.
like there's no going back from it. Holy shit. Like but because of that, I honestly like the movie lost me a little bit after the major transformation, because again, where do you go from there? You know what I mean, in relation to the protagonist's fate. I am really happy that he was able to kill the individual who caused that to him, but fuck if I dislike the fact that they didn't allow Johnny Depp to just kill him outright. Like, holy shit. Like,
If anyone deserved to kill him, I would say it's probably Justin Long's character, though, right?
To kill himself?
no,
No,
to kill
to
the.
kill Howard.
Oh, you think Guy Lapon should have killed Howard? Wait, maybe I misheard
No,
you.
no. She said that if there's any character who should have killed Howard, it should have been
Oh,
Justin Long.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, he got the comeuppance he deserved, but at the same time, it's funny because the villain got exactly what he wanted,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like he got
Yeah.
to be killed by by his own creation, and then event finally, essentially, like get seek a judgment from the walrus that he callously killed.
Yeah. Assuage his guilt or something.
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of plot holes in this movie.
It's not a good movie.
I mean,
but-
it's like, first of all, where the fuck does this old man get the money in order to be able to Airbnb this mansion? You know?
With all the memorabilia, too. Like, because it was actually full of things. Like, I have to assume his stories, for the most part, are true.
Me too. I have to imagine that
And
he
the
did meet
whole
Hemingway, right?
house.
Like, I don't understand why he would need to lie about that particular thing, especially if he's already got the guy drinking tea and stuff like that. It's
Mhm.
like,
Well, it's just to butter him up, just to make him feel defenseless and like I'm just an old man that tells stories in a wheelchair. You know,
yeah.
that was part of his whole shtick to lower Justin Long's defenses in order to drug him and chop his legs off and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I still personally like to believe that all of the stories that he told are true. You know,
I do, too.
I like to believe that all the stories that he told are true, and the fact that he got to have some pretty cool aspects of his life after having had such a shitty childhood, I think is pretty nice. You know?
Presumably, it's only things of like a childhood nature like that would cause you to turn a man into overalls. I don't know. It's got to be some pretty fucked up shit to happen to you in your childhood that would cause you to chop a man's legs off and shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. It's like I really wish that there was some form of like. Yeah, I mean, he does seem to have. Do you think that the place that they ended up putting Wallace in was the exact same place that like he's always been putting walrus people in?
This is the 6th goddamn walrus man this man has brought us. I think maybe something fishy is going on.
Or he's actually the one, like that's actually another LLC of his that.
No, I know they look like people, but they're walruses.
No, they're walruses.
They're
yeah.
walruses.
Yeah, listen, it's understandable if you've never been in a maritime situation and seen a walrus up close.
Yeah, you've never
But
seen
yes,
them.
they're all sewed up like that. They're one of God's strangest creatures, but one of the most beautiful.
Oh, sweet Jesus. See, okay. This is the coolest thing about this movie to me is that it's so disgusting, like viscerally, visually disgusting to watch and to look at. But there is so much like comedy gold hidden in little spots. Like I remember when the first time we see Wallace in his chambers chained up to the rock or whatever, there's a fucking beach ball that's rolling around the pool. Like, how ridiculous is this? Yeah, I'm gonna give him a toy. He would love a little toy.
I mean, you need tools in order to be able to complete the simulation, right? I mean, what makes a man, right? Aside from the tools that a man uses. And what makes a walrus aside from the things that bring them joy, you know?
Like beach balls, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
mackerel.
Yeah, you need to be able, I mean, like he's trying to brainwash the guy, right? I mean, like he's essentially trying to force brainwash him by making him eat mackerel, by making him do all of these animalistic things so he can essentially flip the switch on his animality and only be walrus, because he knows that a reserved human will not be a good enough wrestling partner in order to be able to actually do what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, I mean, like the beach ball made perfect sense. That's why I didn't even think that was that funny because I was like, no, it's of course he would put a beach ball in the like in the seclusion area that he would have a walrus in. Like it just seemed to me, it just seemed like so yeah, it just seemed so obvious that it didn't even like strike like a humorous chord to me in any way.
There's not anything fun in that environment, just the beach.
Just the it's true, and there's no color.
Everything else is nightmarish with chains. It's like,
just such
here's a
stark
beach ball. He'll be
contrast.
all right.
Yeah,
I'll cheer him up.
This is gonna boost that depression he might be feeling. Get a little beach ball.
Really bring out that inner walrus. Walruses love beach balls.
Walruses love beach ball.
Yeah, and just having walruses playing out in the background, just I don't know, like as an instructional guide to show him how to be able to fight.
What was that on the screen? Like
Motivation. That's what that was. I would be
Motivation.
studying that in that position. Like, how in a walrus body do you kill a man?
that looked to me like some kind of really seedy strip club where they play porn on the walls, and that was like his walrus porn that like he wanted to play. He wanted to watch.
It was mostly seagulls and ocean scenes. That's the only
No,
time
there was
we
like
even saw.
walruses killing each
Well,
other.
the
Yeah, but
walruses
that
killing
wasn't
each other
until
was
the
only
fight.
during the fight.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
true.
he started playing that during the fight in order to be able to pretty much set the mood in that kind of thing.
Yeah, set the mood. Exactly. Strip club porno.
There's literally nothing pornographic that I saw in any of those scenes.
Well, not for you because you're not into walruses.
I'm not into fighting.
Well, there you go. See, it just doesn't hit your fetishes.
Not
You
into
know?
seagulls, not into fighting.
That's
Yeah,
And
but
that
I
was
mean-
all of it. So
Yeah, but I
That's
mean,
how I'm shit.
if you're a walrus fetishist, I mean, like it's perfect. Like,
as long as you check this one very important box, this is for you.
That's how people that are really into the poetry of the flesh get off.
Yeah.
They gotta get.
so back to things I didn't like about the movie, right?
Oh my god.
Let's continue the list.
Yeah, honestly, like if anything, like that's really where we're really gonna be going off on because
Are we going in order of most unliked to or disliked to least disliked?
no, just things that are coming up in my mind. Yeah, like for example, his victims, right? Like there doesn't really seem to be a rhyme or reason per se to the people that he walruses up. You know, like the story that he told about his childhood was the fact that priests, nurses, politicians, all of them used to take high advantage of him as a child, right? And as a result of that, he became very calloused, you know what I mean, and misanthropic.
That sounds like a burn, Hannah. But anyway,
That does sound like a burn.
Yeah, so I mean, like he just sounds so like that's what made him to be so misanthropic. And
Mhm.
then the episode with the walrus essentially showed him the fact that animals can be more noble than humans, essentially. And in that way, he felt the need to be able to not only try to get the whole, execution judgment aspect from the walrus that he assassinated,
it's a
Assassinated.
strong word for a. Okay,
It's a
he's
famous
important
walrus,
enough.
guys.
He's important enough. Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
Mr. Tusk is I mean, like he's the catalyst for everything that happened.
That's true.
I mean, like
true.
this man would have just been a normal serial killer if it wasn't. He would have been a
But-
humdrum serial killer. Johnny Depp would have never been on the case if he was just killing people. It's about the whole making legs like leg tusks and sewing people and then making them into T-Rex crucified T-Rex.
Crucified. That's what I wanted to call out.
Yeah,
Is
he's like he looked
the
like.
jokes in this movie are solid. There are some good jokes in this movie.
Oh yeah, which is another reason why I was never able to say that there was like a good enough synthesis of like horror and comedy. Like
Mhm.
the jokes maybe were too good, like they never allowed the darker shading of the movie to take hold enough to be able to say, okay, this is like a horror comedy kind of situation. Like it's just a grotesque comedy.
Yep.
And again, another issue, I mean the same issue is just the fact that there's no, ironic comeuppance. Like there's nothing about the guy's character itself that causes him to end up there, other than the fact that it literally is his job to find weird stories. You know, like I personally thought that this old man was going to be related to the Kill Bill kid and was going to use the situation as a means to be able to pretty much humiliate this guy in the same way that he was seeking to humiliate the Kill Bill kid. And the movie directed me in that way just from the fact that like he lost his leg initially, just like the Kill Bill kid did at the beginning of the movie. And that
Yeah.
made me think, okay, like they're like awesome, like ironic comeuppance. Like this guy's a piece of shit troll, and he's slowly going to be viscerally trolled, in the same way that he has been trolling all of these people. I thought perhaps it was going to be like a episodic situation where they were going to show how the kind of people that he's made fun of on his show to get to the degree that now he makes 100K just from ads and shit like that, like all of the things that he's boasting about. Like, oh, he made fun of this kid who lost his leg, or maybe he made fun of this person who lost their eye, or you know what I mean, like all of like these like
jigsaw style or so.
yeah, but not in the way that he's going to get out, but just ironic comeuppance in that way. Like this guy's a piece of shit, and we're going to viscerally troll him in that way until he quote unquote gets it. That was the misdirection that I felt the movie was going on in that kind of way, and I felt that from my personal opinion, the movie lost me in the fact that like the violence just became random. Like he literally was just a victim of this guy who just picks up anybody who's willing to want to get a bit like a home, like because his regular victims are people who are looking for houses to stay in, and then he makes them into walruses. Like this guy is a special case because he literally just came to him because he was looking for stories.
I don't think he knows what kind of person will check the box to be his ideal Mr. Tusk, though. Like, who will survive as a walrus and fight him as a walrus. So I feel like his search in that way is randomized. I mean, he's putting up ads in bar bathrooms.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe that because, I mean, he genuinely doesn't like any human, right? Like, he's
No.
misanthropic to the nth degree. Like, it doesn't matter who walks in the door. They're dirty, disgusting people, just like every other human who can most certainly be, valorized by becoming a walrus instead of being a human. So I don't think that matters in any way. I'm just saying that like the movie, as far as the story goes in relation to the fact that this is all a structured fiction, that it felt a bit too random, especially because of the fact that they wanted to shoehorn in all of these negative characterizations about him. Like if they never would have brought up the fact that he was a cheater, and it never came up in the movie. Like it's just so dumb, really, in my personal opinion. Like it's just an extra souring aspect for you to never get too sympathetic with him. There's always that revolting aspect about him in relation to being like, oh, but I mean, like he's a piece of shit cheater kind of situation, And because of that, like I just felt that was a bit too manipulating, in relation to my moral compass as the movie went along. Because I already disliked him already. Like, I didn't need him to also be a cheater, X whatever, and then having those scenes with his girlfriend crying and Haley Joel Osment, like, fucking comforting her and shit like that. Like, it really seemed highly superfluous to the fact that he was already caught, And
part of me wondered if that could be like a factor that adds into like the bitter sweetness at the end. Like the character survives and his like friend and ex-girlfriend will be all right because they have each other, and not so much like forced in to throw out that he's a cheater. Because I agree with Matt in the stance that like even if he is a cheater, I don't think he deserves to get turned into a human walrus. Like the character had enough like semi-likable qualities about him that seems a little bit far-fetched for me.
Does he though? I mean, he named his podcast the Nazi Party. I mean, like
it's gotta be the worst. Like, okay, there's some bad podcast names out there, but holy shit. Like, to the point where it's a running joke and then no, spell it.
Yeah.
Gets hung up on.
Yeah, but Haley Joel Osment's character is equally responsible for that piece. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's funny enough that their podcast actually isn't too far off from what we do over here in relation to him finding really shitty things and then like
Exactly.
having me like, wait, you haven't seen it though, right? Okay.
Wait, isn't it ironic that we're making fun of him on a podcast right now?
Making
Full
fun of who?
circle. We're making fun of the character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
It's honoring his memory. Or his memory as a human.
Yeah. Now that he's a better creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just gone back to what he always was at heart.
All right. So you guys don't think it's that good of a movie, but you think that the comedy has grown on you in these further viewings that you've seen.
Well, yeah.
I was looking at Matt initially when I said that because he mentioned the fact that the first time he saw the movie he thought that it was kind of bad, and then the second time he is really coming to his own in relation to like the funny lines and like the absurdist humor in the movie.
It could have been. I don't remember the first time I watched this movie, but I remember. It was either the second or the third time, maybe the second, that I started to think, oh, this movie isn't trying necessarily to make you feel grossed out or scared or nervous, even though it can have those effects as you're watching it. And I think, maybe the first time I watched it, I was a little, I don't know, in my own head, maybe, because it's so visceral when you're watching it. But after a couple of viewings, you start to see all of the jokes a lot better. Like everything is, as with like most like semi-layered movies or whatever, but it lent itself to for me to really find the funny. And so every time I watched it there and there, it just becomes funnier and funnier.
I can see that most certainly. I mean, like, I didn't like this movie this first time watching it, but I could certainly see how I would like it the second time, no longer having that apprehension of what comes next. So I could accept the scenes present-mindedly moving forward and then just accept the jokes as they come, because the entire time, again, like I was trying to figure out, okay, is it ironic comeuppance? Is it really just like a rando getting attacked, like getting taken by a serial killer? Like all of these questions are still flowing in my head. And also because of the attempted synthesis of horror and comedy, like I was never really sure like which direction the movie was going to go in next. So I was always like a bit, internally apprehensive as to like, okay, is it full levity, like, or is it like, should I like maintain some tenseness for like the horror that's to come, like. But now that I know that it's full comedy, I might most certainly see it in a more comedic light the second time around.
And this is like, I mean, I have to ask because Hannah, I think you've maybe made more people watch this movie than I have at this point. And so is there like some secret motive there that you get a little pleasure out of, maybe?
Yeah. What's your walrus fetish?
My fetish is more focused around it. I don't know, making people watch movies that will make them uncomfortable, I guess. That's why I'm on this podcast. So it's really, I mean, especially for me, I know that everybody doesn't have the same experience as me with this kind of thing, but like this is my fourth or fifth probably full viewing of this movie. And I've enjoyed it more than any other viewing because it just becomes more comedy every time I see it. But like literally the first time I watched this movie, I literally felt sick and I turned it off at one point and was not sure if I would turn it back on. So I've really gotten the full spectrum, but I did not hate the movie the first time I saw it, even though I thought it was totally gross and totally upsetting. I'm a sucker for unforgettable movies. I knew I would never forget it. If I know I won't forget a movie, I tend to like it at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate the movie whatsoever. It's just, again, my first viewing, like, I don't know, like the indicators that the movie was giving me were like all over the place. So because of that, I couldn't really settle in to like one thematic um conception of where it was going. So because of that, it just kept me so confused that even now I'm still like, I'm not really sure how I felt about it.
Oh, see, I like that about
Okay.
movies. I like not being put in a vein where I'm kind of being told what to think about the movie. It's just, for me, it's more of an opportunity to live in the moment with a movie and take each scene as it comes without any other preconceptions or assumptions.
Yeah, see, I like the movie. It's true, yeah.
That's Clara's 100% right. The reason I make other people watch this movie is so that I can enjoy watching them watch it.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
If I get the opportunity, because I've also had people watch this movie when I wasn't there, just so I could know it happened.
I can 100% sympathize with what you said about the fact that the more you see the movie, the more hilarious it becomes, just because you allow yourself to see the comedy more in it. Because that's exactly how I felt after like maybe the fifth time that I had somebody watch Synecdoche, New York, because that movie is so depressing the first time you
Mm.
see it, but then as an individual who's seen it so many times and can tell like the nihilistic, like the downerish kind of aspects of it, it just seems so funny, how much of a downer he is about everything, that like it really does make you want to like burst out laughing, even though you know that everything that's being said and the tone and tonality, like the theme and tonality of the movie, is supposed to be sad. You're like, oh my god, what like what is this like sad sack like talking about, like he's not gonna die for 60 more years, like what the fuck is he talking about?
As someone who has only seen that movie one time, I've never heard of anybody thinking it was funny.
It's
so
hilarious.
Yeah,
The
I
more
second that opinion.
yeah, the more and more you watch the movie, the more hilarious it gets. So I can 100%
Mm.
get where you're coming from in that kind of way.
Mm.
When it comes to this one, like that's my parallel to that, like where the movie is in no way, and that movie, that Synecdoche, is actually like an even more concrete way of seeing that, because that movie doesn't lend itself to like a joviality in any sort of way, like literally, like the funniness
Nope.
comes from knowing what comes next,
Mm.
and knowing the fact that everything that he is like being self-saccharine about is just like, what the fuck are you talking about, like you'll outlive everybody. Like what are you talking about, you know
That's one thing that I really enjoyed about watching Tusk this time around is this is one of the times that I think one of the first times that I've watched it that I remember this full movie so well that I got to catch all the foreshadowing. There's a lot of foreshadowing and like future telling jokes in this movie that and I think that's one of the things that makes it funnier and more enjoyable as you get farther and farther in. Because how do you foreshadow for the events of this movie so subtly?
See, is subtle. Yeah, I don't think. I don't think subtle was in Kevin Smith's repertoire when he was writing this.
I
Fucking
mean,
thing.
they did pull off foreshadowing that at least, and I mean, I don't always catch foreshadowing. I have kind of a hard time with it. So maybe it's a me thing, but I did see a lot of foreshadowing this time around that I hadn't caught before. Like in the very beginning of the podcast, he's like making a joke about, like, I don't have one leg. Like, that's not a
Mhm.
problem for me. Like, there's a lot of little things like that that Matt and I were kind of poking each other about throughout this movie.
I was so confused about the whole Kill Bill Kid video initially, because when you watch that video, it looks CGI'd. You know what I
Yeah.
It
mean? Like,
does.
They
like
didn't spend a
thought it
lot of
was.
money.
yeah, they
for
didn't
that.
spend that. Yeah, they didn't spend that much money on that section whatsoever. Like, fucking ever. So I was like, okay, so what are they making fun of exactly? Because it looks like that kid just like CGI'd his leg getting cut off. You know what I mean? Halfway through the story. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, so yeah, I don't know.
I do admit that's a weak point of this
Again,
otherwise fantastic
yeah,
movie.
again, like they had this whole act 1 situation with the Kill Bill Kid, where that was supposed to be the thing that brings him to Canada, you know and again, like, I thought that there was going to be some means of being able to tie his callousness to that kid's, to the grief of that kid and stuff like that, to his loss in any sort of way, aside from just the incidental, oh, I'm a walrus now, as opposed to a man, you know?
That's true. He
Whoops.
made fun of that kid for not having a leg and never once reflected on it empathetically.
Not whatsoever. It was such bullshit. Like, and not only that, but the movie goes twice out of its way to give you that second flashback, you know, where he's like full on Anthony Kiedis on the bed, and like, and fucking and go all like, oh, you should have been making fun of kids with one leg. You know what I mean? I wonder how this is gonna tie into the movie later. Oh, but it doesn't. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he really. I agree with you. It would have been nice to see some kind of vengeance for that type of behavior and that type
if
of
that guy,
attitude.
you know, one scene could have fixed it all in relation to the fact that that guy. I can believe that Howard Howe guy doesn't know what an internet podcast is. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's
believe
say that in the interim of him being like, you know, him waking up and him falling asleep, you know, from the inducement of becoming a walrus, he's like, listen, hey, Wallace, I've been watching your podcast. You know, like I've been listening to the things that you say online and stuff like that. Oh, funny stuff, you know, like, and then slowly but surely, like seeking to incorporate, you know what I mean, like the trollish aspect of his being to, you know what I mean, to the experiments that are being applied upon him. I feel that would have been a better thematic glue as opposed to just the nothing that was there now.
I can't with that. I know you haven't. I know you're not like me and like haven't subjected yourself to bad horror movie after bad horror movie after bad horror movie, but that is a horror movie trope.
Right, but this isn't a horror movie, it's a comedy, right? So they would have been able to use the trope in a funny way while also maybe adding to the grotesqueness of it. I mean, like, this isn't a horror movie whatsoever. So because of the fact that it's a comedy, it can take all of the tropes that would make somebody chuckle during a horror movie and then make them laugh out loud, I say, in the comedy setting, you know, as a result of that.
I feel a little bummed out that you said that.
In what way?
That it's not a horror movie.
But it is.
I have a hard time with horror comedies, and
what's
this is
scary
like
about
my top, like one of my favorite horror comedies because I think it is actually unsettling and hilarious at the same time. And to say it's not a horror movie whatsoever really bums me out.
I mean,
I was horrified the first time I watched this
To be perfectly
movie.
honest, I wasn't scared or horrified or like body horrified even, you know what I mean? Because I saw it coming relative to the diagrams that he showed on the board. You know what I mean? Like I could see the final product before he actually showed it to us. Because I would imagine that he's actually following the diagrams that he's doing. You
From
know what
my
I mean?
first experience with this movie, honestly, the most horrifying part was like putting myself in the shoes of the main character and imagining like waking up in a stranger's house without a leg. And that line at the dinner table when he says, "I'm not sleepy, I'm immobilized." That was a really striking line for me the first time I watched this movie. I thought that was like very bone chilling.
All I could think of was how delicious those potatoes looked on that plate he was eating. I was like, damn, that looks like a good meal. Holy shit.
Jesus. You didn't come here
man.
hungry, did you?
No, I ate the Wendy's
You're
meal
not allowed
before.
to come here hungry.
So I don't know if this will help or not, but there is the small amount of backstory to this that maybe will, I don't know if it'll help you look at the movie in a different light, but it might. So originally, I think there was this tagline attached to either the movie poster or something where it says based on a true story. And that is true in the sense that it is based off of the true story of a fake advert from somebody to have somebody live in their house. However, they can live rent free and everything, but however, they need to be in a walrus suit and act as a walrus. And so Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, the guys that run the Smodcast, were talking about this story and were very, very stoned. And it's basically the birth of this movie was them discussing how this might happen in real life, except with this disgusting horror comedy twist that they put on it in the end. But that's sort of the basis of the creation of TUSK here.
Is this part of the Askewverse? Does this exist within the same world as Red State Dogma and
Well, does Red
the
State
Clerks and supposedly
so
all of those exist in the same universe.
in the same universe?
Yeah.
I didn't know Red State was part of the but I guess it has to be, right? do they reference anything else in the Askew universe?
I just thought that literally anything that Kevin Smith
Good
did
put
was
Sans
within
to.
the Askew universe. I mean,
Well, he also did like Cop Out, which I've never seen, but it's like Bruce Willis and who's that guy that got hit by the Walmart truck? The comedian used to be on Mad TV, or maybe it was, I can't think of his name, but anyway, I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, that was,
It's possible, but there's no reference
living
to it,
as a
so I don't
walrus?
think we can guarantee it.
Claire. You wouldn't mind?
yeah, but how could you fulfill the chores though? You know what I mean? Like, what chores is he talking about? You know, in relation to like wearing a walrus suit and then doing chores?
No, I think he was just like standing up a very reasonable deal to bait more people in. Like,
Hey, and you
can
know
stay
what?
here
He
as
did
long
get a
as
couple
you
people
want.
in because when you look at that advert,
It's
there's
got
a
the
whole
tags
bunch.
torn
There's got a
off.
bunch of little
Yeah.
tags that have been pulled off.
I noticed that too. I was like, those were probably the other walruses in the bottom of the basement pool.
This really emphasizes the fact that you should never, ever go to a second location. Never go to a second location.
literally-
Okay, actually, I'm sorry, Hannah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that this is one of those scenes in movies when like he drives up to the house that I think like, man, I would never do that. But I think like generally men feel more safe going into different situations, especially if
Yeah,
you're
we're
like,
stupid.
it's an old man.
Much stupider.
Much cheaper. I mean, you know what's funny is that when he first got to the house and that guy offered him tea, I was thinking inside of my head, you should never take liquids from people you don't know.
I thought that too.
Especially because he didn't have a teacup himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah,
I
like
made
drink
this
that
special
first.
tea for
Yeah,
you.
drink that first, sir.
He didn't have a teacup himself. I thought he did.
No.
Well, that's highly suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody makes tea just for someone else.
See, you, even a cautious woman, did not notice.
I wouldn't have taken the tea anyway. Wait, to be fair, I don't take drinks from
I would
people I
have
don't know.
splashed it back in his face and told him, "Take that." Patriarchy.
Force feed it to him.
Yeah, just slap around the dishes. You mop the floors, you scoot about. It's fine. The human skin is very absorbent.
Yuck.
So do you think that he managed to be able to beat those other walruses in Mortal Kombat that were under the pool, or do you think that they just drowned themselves?
I think they
at
drowned
least-
during the swimming.
Yeah.
You think they-
Either that or themselves, sure. Because like everything you see, like the chain around the back flippers, that was probably a lesson learned. And then like, oh, I got to put more blubber in the suits, otherwise they drown.
That's a
Lesson
very
learned.
fair point. That's a very fair point.
Process.
Yeah.
Because, like, the fact that he dumped, well, like Claire said, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
The fact that he dumped, like, torsos, that means torsos didn't make it into the suit yet. So he makes it a little farther every time. It's continuous improvement.
And this one was actually, his magnus opus because it did manage to be able to kill him.
This is what he was working for.
This is the true walrus. Full walrus.
So you're
Mr.
saying that
Tusk.
in normal shitty horror movies, they usually use the very obvious dramatic ironies of the character, of like the negative ironies of the character in order to be able to essentially
Shitty-
10 Commandment kill them in
Shitty
that
horror
way.
movies
100%.
love ironic
But
punishment.
see, that sounds perfect.
They
If you're
love
trying
it.
to make a horror comedy movie, I think it's perfect to use the core tropes that are most funny
That's
in
the
relation to the
problem.
fact that people see them coming in
It's
that way.
exactly the problem. Is it's like it's a trope for horror movies, bad horror movies, and it's also a trope for horror comedy movies. Like we see it all over the place, and like I
But
think
wait,
if that had
there's
happened,
more.
I do think that if that had happened here, even though this movie is crazy, I think for me, just because of my experience with it, that would have made this movie forgettable for me.
Okay.
Because I've seen like literally horror movies where people do crazy, disgusting things, like like feeding people to rats and stuff like that, and it's like an ironic punishment thing, and that I just check out as soon as I get hit with that concept.
Okay. See, that is 100% fair, and one of the issues that I dislike about the movie, in the sense that they sprinkled all these extra negative characterizations about him further than him just being a trollish asshole.
They did. Yeah.
unnecessarily if they weren't going to use those as as an ironic comeuppance angle. I personally feel that it would have been able to synthesize the horror and comedy aspect more if they would have kept him a more likable protagonist the entire time.
This was
Like
the same.
comedy
I
would-
told you we should have watched the other movie because he's not gonna like this protagonist either.
like
Which one?
the
Oh, Splice. Yeah, that might be next on the
okay, that's
chopping
perfect.
block.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
like
going through a body horror section of
we're
the
trying to figure out the
podcast.
poetry of the
Our
flesh.
apologies.
It's a lifelong journey, friends.
Yeah.
the poetry of the flesh.
I mean, listen. Once again, skin is the largest organ on the human body, so I'm sure it'll take us a long time to actually get all the way through it.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think I'll subject you to any more than these plus splice. Then we'll move on.
But yeah, I mean, like if they would have just kept him an innocently trollish asshole who slowly changed his personality in order to be able to meet the whims of his more assholish audience, you know what I mean? That would have been able to keep him within the realm of the comedy because the jokes, obviously, you know, like those would have always kept coming. Johnny Depp's character would have always showed up. The whole section would have still been funny. You know what I mean? But the horror aspect of me feeling like like the human melancholy of what's happening to the victim kind of situation would have still been able to kept itself revved up in that way. Like I still would have felt bad about him becoming a walrus and stuff like that. As it stands, I don't, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like I just don't feel
What?
bad about the fact that he became a walrus. I feel bad
That
about the
doesn't
fact
make you feel even a little bit bad.
no, not whatsoever. I feel bad about the fact that it didn't bother killing him at the end. Like, I don't think anybody should continue to be subjected to being a walrus. You know?
But you don't feel bad that a man literally like amputated his leg.
Do I feel bad about it? No, of course not. No. No, because apparently, according to the movie, he had it coming. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's necessarily.
I don't know if that's the message.
I mean, if he
I
was willing to
agree.
come, if he was willing to drop $600 on a plane ticket and then whatever amount more on rental cars and everything to just go talk to a kid who chopped his leg off in order to be able to figure out a means to be able to make fun of him next week. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a guy, you know what I mean,
Oh.
who then a lot like lends himself to sympathy in that way.
I mean,
he is callous. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what they showcase about his character is the fact that he used to be a funny, geeky guy who his girlfriend really liked in relation to the fact that he was a sweetheart, but at the same time still trying in that way. He calloused himself up and decided to become a troll because that's what pays. All right? And in that way, you know what I mean? His hardened skin made him perfect to be the skin of a walrus.
Oh God!
You know?
What is this?
I mean, I agree that he's callous, but I also think that like this is. I mean, it's like a return on investment thing. Like he makes fun of things for a living, and also he said in the dialogue that this kid invited him out for an interview.
Do you think that the kid killed himself exactly because he was coming over?
I wondered if the kid did
Why
it
would
as
you
like a
invite
message, like he was planning on killing himself, and he was like, "I'm gonna invite one of these assholes who make fun of me over
Yeah, but then
for
you
an
do it
interview, and then I'm
like
gonna kill
after,
myself
right?
right
Or
before."
during?
or during.
Oh,
Oh.
how badass would that scene have been? Or, you know
You're
what I
doing
mean?
the same
If he was
thing.
asking, he's like, hey, you want to see some moves? Like, oh yeah, sure. Wah! And then like he just chops his head off in the way that they say that he did. You know?
That would have been a great deleted scene at the very.
Yeah, like he
least.
only gets like 5 minutes of the interview and then he just gets fucking splashed with blood. He's like, what the fuck?
That's what you get for being a troll.
It would have been just as fine if the kid would have been earnest about wanting to be on a podcast. You know what I mean? And then just through sheer dumbassery, cut his own head off. You know what I mean?
Okay, that would have been too funny. I think that's.
But wouldn't that have been the perfect upper hill to then bring it down? You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
the horror Tusk aspect of it, because at that point, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I mean, like, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
this guy's like everyone's like, come home. Like you just watched the kid behead himself in front of you. It's like, no, I still need a story.
I spent all the money. I came out here.
You know, I think we could really tap into the market if we were documenting like the Jose remix versions of all the movies that we watch, and then we get them filmed.
Oh, we should just start making bad I mean, quality remakes, not like bad,
Not bad.
not bad
I was like-
story or character wise, but we don't have good cameras
No.
and lighting and shit.
Maybe in a
No,
year or
honestly,
two.
thank you, Claire. Apparently, the cosmic moral is the fact that there's no big deal. Like anything can happen to you. Everything's carte blanche to you as long as you're a cheater. You know.
Right.
I mean, I mean, sad as it may be, I guess I don't really give a shit. I mean, like, I thought it was really funny though how much of a fucking cuck Haley Joel Osment's character was, in the sense that he went all that he like slept at his girlfriend's house, but they didn't even have sex with each other, because when you wake up in the morning, they're like one's like sleeping on that side and he's like
Yeah, head
sleeping
to
like
foot and back
facing
to front.
head to foot kind of situation.
I assumed
The
that they were
ultimate
sleeping
friend zone.
together because they.
No, but they weren't though. Like, remember, she mentioned the fact that like she's so pissed off about the fact that he's such a cheater, but she never cheats on him.
She never said that. She said like I'm reminded of what we're doing to him.
No.
Yeah,
she
she
said that
did.
she said that she feels so bad about being so pure and so faithful while being with such a shitty man. And what would her father say? Being with such a piece of shit, essentially. And then that's when Haley Joel Osment's hand goes up to her cheek. You know what I mean? And he like comforts her. And then the scene changes, and then she misses the phone call, and then he goes in. Then the next morning, she wakes up full like sleep dressed. You know what I mean? And his head is facing toward her feet, and she's sleeping normally.
It's true that she could have just been saying like she feels guilty about just hanging out with his best friend alone.
She literally said what we're doing to him. I've always interpreted that they had been sleeping together for a while.
I did not interpret that whatsoever. But
I don't
then
know
again,
many
I've only
adults
seen this
who
movie the one
sleep
time.
over in each other's
I
beds
am-
without
I-
doing anything.
I'm still running on the supposition that he's the only piece of shit in this situation, because it honestly doesn't seem like Haley Joel Osment's character has been getting any whatsoever throughout this whole scenario.
I mean, he's totally simping. He's like, how could you cheat on somebody that hot?
Yeah. Oh,
Like-
100%. Yeah.
Poor Haley Joel.
No, but I honestly think that,
I mean, he got her in the end just by process of elimination.
but we don't even know that. I mean, he could still just be
He's
like
still
friend zoning. He could still be
Oh,
friend zoning this
no.
shit, because I don't see, they didn't walk in holding hands. You know what I mean? Like he like brought her away crying. You know what I mean? Like in a way that a friend would. So like, I honestly think that he's still friend zoned in that way, but he's still just trying to work the mangles.
I'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
I'll fucking get there.
Yeah, honestly,
Sleeping in the bed.
if we're talking about
How much
comedies, I think it's
closer?
a lot funnier to consider the fact that Haley Joel Osment's character has never had sex with Wallace's girlfriend.
I agree. That's the funniest
That's
scenario.
way funnier. Yeah, like
I think
he goes to art museums with her. He does all of these extra shit, you know?
He's doing the boyfriend acts while they're in the relationship.
Which I would imagine is just keeping her obfuscated from how shitty that guy is, right? Because it's like if there was a genuine absence of a man being there for her, you know what I mean? She would wisen up to the fact that this guy ain't it. But because of the fact that it's always his best friend hanging out there with him, be like, well, I mean, at least he's smart enough to be friends with this nice guy. You know what I mean? So, like, it just, like, reverberates back to being like, well, maybe there's still a chance for me to be able to reform this piece of shit, you know?
Yeah, I did find it weird how much she like cries over Wallace with that character, you know, and like, because I would think that like if they're sleeping together, he probably wouldn't appreciate that much.
No,
like,
and that's exactly what I'm saying.
good point.
Is the fact that like he is still entirely in the friend zone position, but he is trying to do everything he possibly can to pretty much fulfill every base necessary until the moment comes in and he can swoop. You know,
there's got to be
swoop
an
and scoop,
opportunity one of these days.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's clearly attracted to her. They hint at that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, there's a name for this, and it's the sneaky fucker strategy.
The sneaky- it is.
That's the scientific name for it. Yeah. it's
Holy fucking shit! Wait a minute. I can tie this back to walruses.
Yeah,
Holy
I was
fucking
just thinking
shit!
this.
Yeah, because that's exactly right. Because that's exactly what a walrus, that a male walrus who is a bull in that way, right? Who has a harem, because he has so many females. the more beta males will slowly but surely try to sneak in and have sex with one in the harem, while the bull is either completely like taken like indisposed or completely unable to be there in that moment.
My mind is blown.
Holy
I don't.
shit!
Okay, I
That's
don't
where, I
need
think
the.
that's where that name came from,
I
wasn't it?
think
The
so,
walrus.
Yep,
Ooh,
yep,
yeah.
That and cuttlefish.
So
Yeah.
while Wallace's character is getting turned into a walrus, his best friend is utilizing the sneaky
Sneaky fucker
fucker
effect,
strategy
yep.
on his girlfriend while he's fucking other women.
And he
who
does
could be
have a
considered
harem
his
of women, essentially.
Yeah. They
I
did
don't-
that on purpose.
Dude,
No, Kevin Smith, good job. That was
Yeah.
a good one. That was a
Okay.
good one.
Good one, Kevin
Yeah,
Smith.
holy shit, that was a good one. Yeah.
not to be insulting at all, but do you think this is the reason why Haley Joel Osment was cast?
Oh. No, that's not fair because every walrus bull is a big guy,
Yeah.
and Justin Long is not a big guy.
No, but in human terms, it's a little different, right? A big guy is somebody who has a lot of
Confidence.
money, a lot of confidence in the human world.
Right.
That's the male version of the bull with the harem, right? And Haley Joel Osment in the human world. If you just look at him,
Yeah,
No,
'cause
for sure.
he's-
if you,
Yeah.
you know, he's a soft looking
yeah,
fella.
he's a
Well,
soft beta for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, Justin Long is like the center of their podcast. He goes out and he does the interviewing. He's
Well, it's his
he's front and
podcast.
center.
To
Yeah.
be perfectly fair. Haley Joel Osment is the vestigial aspect that he added on in order to be able to make the joke be full. Because he's the comedian, right? Like, he tries to make his friend laugh.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then from there, and then with his reaction, make the audience laugh by proxy, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shtick, right?
Man,
That's
What
good.
a great
That's
tie
good
back.
stuff.
That's beautiful.
That's good
really.
stuff.
We'll add that to the 2-point
All right, I like
list.
that about the movie.
I was just gonna say we're
starting
gonna
to
add
see
that
it.
as
Yeah.
a second bullet
Yeah.
onto what Jose likes about this movie. We got 2,
Mhm.
ladies
That
and
was
gentlemen.
very solid.
That's two strong ones. Eh?
Well, let me say the third one would be the fact that if I watch this movie again, I would most certainly see the funny aspects of it.
Yep.
Far. Even if I haven't seen the movie a second time yet, I can, premeditate how, knowing,
For sure.
the thematic through line would allow me to then loosen my shoulders a little more and allow the comedy to kind of just roll through me a little bit more, because the horror synthesis does keep me too tense to allow the jokes to really land in that way, Because even if I personally didn't like the protagonist, you know what I mean? Like, there's still like a humanistic aspect of me that's just like, there's still a pretty harrowing situation happening, and like I don't really know which way it's gonna, go in that way, which doesn't lend itself to the full blown comedy aspect, which I'm sure Kevin Smith didn't want it to be in the first, on the first round kind of thing.
Also, like, I can't speak for Jose and what he likes about this
Yeah,
movie,
don't you
but
dare.
I would totally give just Johnny Depp's involvement its own bullet on this, because also they don't credit him in the credits; they just drop his character name. So Johnny Depp for sure did this as like a solid, and he did great. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah, his crazy eyes were amazing.
I don't
How
know
did
how
he
you do that.
partially cross his eyes for the
Very
whole
impressive.
movie? It was amazing. That would give me a headache.
Yeah, honestly. I can see why they put him as the Mad Hatter again. Like, holy shit, like that eye movement
Yeah,
situation.
no
like,
kidding.
fuck. Like, I bet he learned it from that movie.
Wait, I would have to compare the dates that these came out, because the Mad Hatter, that was a long time ago too now.
A little while ago, yeah.
I think I was still...
Yeah, but I'm saying the Mad Hatter came out before this movie, so he got the practice of the crazy eyes with the Mad Hatter, and then this movie happened.
Oh, it's Jack Sparrow plus Mad Hatter.
Yeah.
Guy Lapine?
Yeah, because he's drunk as fuck the entire time.
Oh, for sure.
Drunk as a skunk for sure.
Probably for real. No, I don't know.
Yeah, well, he probably is. Yeah, he is. I'm sure he needs a little juice in order to be able to get to that degree where he can like loosen his eyeballs in that way. You know what I mean? Like, Kevin, listen, dude.
I
Listen,
certainly
baby.
would.
Hey, listen.
Listen, baby. Baby.
Yeah, you let me 1/8, all right, for this bottle,
I got
and
a
I'll
little
cross
bit.
my eyes any way you want them to, all right?
What an incredibly fun character, though. I felt like all of his dialogue was so just like engaging and entertaining. And his mannerisms too. I thought that it was a super, super well played character.
And a great choice too to save him for 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Yeah,
So
honestly.
we can all be surprised when we're like, because like when when I first watched this movie, Matt showed me this movie years ago. And while we were watching it, because this is such a good disguise, he was like, "Do you recognize that guy?" And I stared at it for a while, and then I went, "No." And he was like, "That's Johnny Depp." And my first thought was, what is Johnny Depp doing here?
Shouldn't he be in a villa somewhere? What the fuck? Yeah, that's exactly the right face, Wallace. What is Johnny Depp doing here? What is he doing in my movie? Upstaging you. That's what he's doing, Justin Long.
By a lot.
Yeah,
For
honestly.
a third of the time on screen.
I bet Justin Long felt a little deflated when they're like, "Oh yeah, Johnny Depp's coming too." It was like, "Oh damn."
Oh man, but I'm the star, right?
No, literally, like they don't even have to tell us that it's Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp is still the star. The performance is just he delivers like a crazy randomized character so well.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of sounds like he method acted as a homeless man in Quebec for like 3 weeks, and then he's like, "All right, I got it."
He probably did.
I'm ready, Kevin. I'm ready.
I'm ready to go.
I even got my flask.
Yeah, no, I brought
this from home. Yeah, no worry. Yeah,
from the villa.
yeah.
With me and Amber. So, well, all right. So have we come to the stars? Are you ready to throw out stars?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
Yeah.
Giving it quite the dig. All right, Hannah, you go first.
Oh, you're gonna make me go first? Because I was gonna do it semi-vindictively.
All right, Jose, you go first.
All right. As a first-time viewing, I give it 3 stars. It loses 2 stars from me personally because, unfortunately, I'm more of a more ABC structured kind of guy when it comes to movies. That's just the way that I like them, unfortunately. And I dislike the piecemeal like background information being given when he's going unconscious and stuff like that. Like it didn't really feel like it fit relative to like what the movie was telling me at that very particular moment, and it just bugged me, fucking everything else, the fucking set design, the cast, the minimalism and the sound and in the soundtrack was, in my personal opinion, great. Again, I hate audio manipulation. That's one of the, there's no quicker way to lose a star for me than trying to make me feel a particular way with music. And this one didn't. It was just like little somber notes, you know what I mean? Like that, like the table scene, you know what I mean? When he left, like he stands up for the first time and the sound just completely changes and shifts and everything. Like, oh fuck, like this guy walks, like
oh no,
that was great. I'm sure that I could actually give it 4 out of 5 stars if I watched it a couple more times and I appreciated it more for the comedy that it was than the mix that I'm seeing it as the first time around.
I'm surprised he got a 3 since the whole podcast has been about all of the reasons that Jose did not like the movie.
It's amazing.
That's the reason why. That's the reason why I wanted to go through the
-4.
things I didn't like, because I wanted to hear you guys' counters in relation to them. You know what I mean, and like to temper. The initial negative aspects of the movie. I don't try to I try my very best not to be militant about my opinions in any sort of way. Like I'll let throw them out, and I really, really hope that you guys can counter them, especially if you guys did like the movie, and and I do feel like you guys made a very good defense as to why this movie is good. You know what I mean? Especially after multiple viewings, which is something I just don't have at the moment.
I might have given this a 2 after the first time I watched it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So I got to give you credit.
Yeah, I
didn't have a good time.
I was never. Yeah, maybe it's because I was never grotesque. You know what I mean? I never felt like the movie was getting to the degree that it's too icky or anything like that. So because of that, like the movie held me out the entire movie. You know what I mean? Like to me personally, that default's 3 stars. Like
I have to ask you, like, my new default question for this podcast, especially when you give a 3 or lower, is, but were you entertained?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Especially once Johnny Depp's character popped up. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, I'll be perfectly honest in the sense that once they started the whole Canadian manhunt for him, that aspect of the movie lost me by a hair, just because of the fact that it seems so improbable that these two randos were going to be able to actually find him. You know, once they injected the Johnny Depp's character, who's a Quebecian detective who has been removed from his force because he's too obsessed with this serial killer guy. I'm like, okay, like here's the added element, both in comedy and in terms of expertise, who can actually carry the movie that extra bit of mile.
Yeah. So since you're vindictive, or your stars are anyway, I'll just say that this is a great bad movie. If I were to plug stars into it, I would have to plug the same stars that I would for like Army of Darkness or the other Evil Deads for that matter. Like
Ooh.
like it's so bad that it's so good. And maybe it is just the rewatch value that I've sort of gleaned that opinion from, but it is true, the more you watch it, the funnier it gets. And it's a hard first watch for anybody. And the good thing is, now, if you feel so inclined, you get the opportunity to go and wreak this havoc among other people.
Yeah,
among other friends.
I'm sure it'll be really funny to inflict this movie on someone.
It's very funny. It's very funny. So your take.
5.
5 out of 5.
And it will be a 6 next time I watch it.
Next time you catch that extra joke.
I don't think there's a cap on how good this movie can get, depending on how many times you're willing to watch it.
It does get easier.
It gets easier every time.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's the only movie I can say that for, to be perfectly honest.
Yep.
Well, damn. 5 out of 5, huh? What other movie would this movie be a parallel for you?
The Witch is a 5 out of 5 for me, granted for incredibly different reasons. The Witch is, I think, like a through and through very well-made movie, and it's one of my all-time favorite horror movies. This, honestly, was not a 5 for me out of the gate, and it's just like the more I've watched it, the more levels I've come to enjoy it on, and I just like, I have to give it ample credit for that. I've never had another movie do that for me, that like I really didn't like it the first time I watched it, and the more time I spent with it, like I like was like laughing under my breath for most of this movie this time around. I had a really good time. So I have to give it a 5 if I'm being honest with myself.
It's the Pootie Tang of movies for Hannah. Good.
Yeah.
Good
It kind of is the horror Pootie Tang.
I was so okay. There was a small part of me that was hoping that you would just crack up at some of the most ridiculous, like horror. Like
You really let
little
us down,
bits
Jose.
of, like
Like
when
what
you
parts?
like, well, okay, Michael Parks, by the way, one of the best fucking actors on the planet. Like, he was amazing in Red State. He was amazing in this movie. I love him everywhere. But when he's sitting at the dinner table, the first time he breaks character, so to speak, and he's like, "Itsy spider," and Justin Long is like, "Oh shit!"
That was one of
That's
the few,
when it gets
that
real.
was one of the few sections of the movie that I actually thought was kind of scary.
Oh,
you
good.
know, yeah, like it didn't make me laugh because that was a good tonal shift in my personal opinion. Like it was one of the few moments where the movie was like levity, levity, levity. No, it's dark. No, like no, like this isn't getting any better for this guy. You know what I mean? Like,
or like when he also asks, like, "We're here to answer the most important question: Is man truly a walrus at heart?" Like, okay.
yeah. See, I'm sure that line would be hilarious next time around.
Second time,
yeah,
yeah.
next time around when I'm not expecting what he means, but when I'm not trying to like expect what he means by that. You know, like, yeah,
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think early in the movie, like, I think it gets less scary as you get more clarity on what's going on. For me, the not knowing what's going on, not knowing why he's being held, like, seemingly captive in this big house, that was what made me the most uncomfortable, I would say, my first watch through. But
now,
and the obvious lies. It's like, what do you mean the doctor took all your phones? I don't
the doctor
believe
took
you.
all- He didn't want you to be disturbed.
He walked through this entire mansion
insane.
and pulled all your landlines out of the wall. Is that
Yeah,
what you're
but-
telling me?
I mean, like I was still so sedated at that point that like
Right.
I wouldn't have like it would have pulled me out of the movie if he started asking too many questions in that state. You You know, like there really is no means to be able to satisfy everybody in terms of like what they believe, what their like threshold of believability to that situation is, right?
Especially when you wake up to a missing leg.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
my
might take a
threshold
little-
is 0 of believability if I wake up to a missing leg. Like, if I'm still in your house, I don't believe anything you say.
Good to know. Good to know.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a good.
This is our house, so it's a little different, but
Sure,
not by
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. It was just like I felt that now that there was no connection to it, it just felt like poor, like, coincidence. The fact that he was there to talk about the Kill Bill kid who lost his leg, and then the first thing he loses is his leg. You
It's a
know?
I mean,
little
it's kind
ham-fisted,
of.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of ironic comeuppance, even though they didn't address it explicitly and throw it in your face.
That's
I
not
still
ironic.
think
It's coincidental.
No, it's ironic. Ironic and coincidental are
Sick
not
reference.
mutually exclusive. They can exist at the same
No,
time.
no. Ass
Yes, they
bender.
can.
All right. That is not an ironic just a fate. That's coincidental.
It's 100% ironic that he went there to laugh at a kid with one leg and then he ended up with no legs. That's ironic and
Okay.
hilarious.
When you phrase it like that, it's a little better. Oh shit. Any closing thoughts, friends?
It was a good movie.
Liked it.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
I
I'm
recommend
glad.
everybody watch it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Twice.
want to end with the fact that just because there were more negative aspects about the movie, it doesn't mean that automatically makes me dislike the movie.
Mhm.
What makes me dislike a movie is just having nothing to talk about at the end of it all.
3 is pretty
You know.
generous, I would say. 3 is like, we don't assume that you don't like a movie if you give it a 3. That's a 5 is a hard achievement.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, it's not Pootie Tang.
It's not
No Pootie
quite
Tang.
Pootie
Yeah.
Tang.
Yeah.
That's
We're
for
gonna
sure,
have
yeah.
to do a bonus episode on Pootie Tang at some point.
Oh, please. Let's do a double feature right now. It's only
Yeah, so- we'll see you guys in an hour and a half. All right?
Sarate.
Ta-da-da.
Well, this has been great. We should definitely do Pootie Tang at some point, regardless. I know Con Air is on the list,
Mhm.
Claire, and
Yeah,
we'll
it
get
is.
to it.
So is Splice.
So is Splice, and
We've
that
got
may
a big
come
list,
first.
to be honest.
Yeah, you know, we're on a body horror train thing right now. So
We'll make it to 200 subs. Don't you worry.
One way or another.
we're getting there.
Sneaking up on it.
Yeah. So I guess until next time, when you poor folks will be subjected to more lethal introspection, we will sign off for the evening.
Yep.
Everybody have a good night.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Have a good night.
What